Well, I have been wanting to come to Utah State for many years now. Once I learned about the amazing archive, I have been such a fan of the outdoor industry and the history of it for as long as I've been designing. So it's been a dream of mine to be able to come. Also, the program I think is just such an incredible thing to be able to teach young people how to design for the outdoors, to understand the importance of it. So to be able to come and get a look behind the scenes has been a dream of mine. My workshops are around upcycling. The goal is always to try to find creative ways of reworking something. I have so much fun within my process, and so to be able to share that with other people and get them inspired and excited about the idea of upcycling is always like the best and the biggest goal for me. So that's definitely the number one thing, and mostly just to have fun, to kind of let your guard down, especially if you're designing a lot, if you have pressures of deadlines and that kind of stuff. The goal of a workshop is to just have like a low stakes, high fun environment. I think teaching workshops for students is my favorite because I feel like we both get the most out of it. It's obviously amazing to work with brands and to be able to go teach workshops internally, and they understand the product super well. But I think there's something about the next generation of designers that are coming up that will one day work at these companies that are just very like they're at this very vulnerable stage in their lives and their future careers that are all ahead of them. I think like to be able to connect with them and meet with them at this time is for me super important. I think this is really when you can put these ideas into their heads about like what are the possibilities. For the brief today, I really wanted to prompt the students a fun brief because again, for me, it's so important to have that joy and that moment of levity when creating something. But my problem that I wanted them to solve is a snack problem. We all need snacks on the trail, on our runs, and our activities, but we need a lot of snacks. So my challenge is them to be able to incorporate 7 snack pockets or some type of way of carrying at least 7 snacks with them at all times. And it could be any type of snack. And I would love them to do the more wackier the snack, the better. So, thinking like your typical trail snacks, trail mix, bananas, that kind of stuff. But what about a slice of pizza? What about a piece of cake? So can you make a way to store that on a hike or a run or a bike? I'm very excited to see who they come up with. I'm so honored to be here and to celebrate the 10-year. I'm in beyond good company. I feel like all my inspirations have been coming here. So it just feels so surreal to be a part of that and to have some type of, design identity that people look up to enough that I could be a part and that they want to learn from me. I'm excited to see what I could learn. And I think, yeah, these 10 years are just an amazing tribute to all the successes and so many more things to come. I had probably the craziest archive experience, and I've been to quite a lot of archives. I'd say some highlights of mine. Well, I work a ton with Arc'teryx. They've been a partner of mine for 6 years to be able to see some of those original catalogs and some of the magazines with some well-known employees that I've known for years and kind of seeing more about their stories and reading their history, I think has been great. I think all the tents, the history of all the tents, the geodomes, I think like really getting a full insight on just how much it takes to build something like that of that scale. Just being able to look through that has been awesome. The posters, I think, were a huge highlight for me. Honestly, endless. I think I just was fully appreciative of just how much time it takes to curate something like that and the history and just all the knowledge that I was able to kind of take away. I took probably like 1,000 pictures yesterday. So started as a graphic designer. I was working for Reebok, and at the time Adidas owned Reebok, so I was a little bit working on both Adi and Reebok product. But doing graphic design, I was not trained in footwear or apparel, but I was always very curious about like how shoes were made, how clothes were made. And so while I was working at Reebok, I would try to get off the computer as much as possible and try to make things with my hands. And I learned very quickly how much just waste there was just in the office and the factories, but there would always be these boxes of samples and shoes piled up. And I was just like, what if I took some of these home? No one would notice, and would take them home and try to cut them up and Frankenstein shoes back together with hot glue. And eventually I just started to see things and shapes that I really liked. And I started to get better at making things. I learned how to sew. And I eventually was like, there's something here for me. I feel like if this one company has all this stuff, like every company, like even beyond fashion, must have some type of waste that they don't need. And I was right about that. And they were also very willing to give it to me and, you know, get rid of it. They were trying to find ways of throwing it away. So instead they would send it to me and I would find ways to be able to rework it. So that's kind of how it started. And then now it's just become something I never really thought it would be. I get to work with all different types of brands and many different industries, even beyond fashion, to help them come up with creative, resourceful ways of using this stuff. And part of that is connecting companies with schools. There's a lot of waste streams that kind of hit dead ends. And so for me, it's like being the middleman and connecting the dots between like a big company and a student. And so that's been such a amazing part of it. And I still get to be very hands-on in my job. That's always been a big goal of mine, is to create things and to still get on the sewing machine as much as possible. So still prototyping, still making stuff. I mean, it started mostly because once I realized they had all this stuff, they were very, very willing to send it to me. And at some point I was like, I can't even house any of this stuff. Like, I'm one person, I don't need all of these things. But then I was getting emails from students like constantly being like, how are you getting these materials? Or like, I'm working on a school project and I could really use some like Dyneema or Gore-Tex. And meanwhile, I have companies that have so much of it. And the things that I was finding was like the materials they had were still very usable. A lot of it wasn't just even like, you know, beyond repair jackets. Some of it was rolls of fabric that maybe had like a small water spot damage or something, and they couldn't use it for production. But so they were like, we don't know what to do with this. So connecting, like finding the people that were like someone like Chase at, you know, that's heading up a program, connecting a company like an Arc'teryx or, you know, even beyond like footwear. That's Puma. I've donated a ton of sneakers and stuff and shoelaces, like all the little details that you wouldn't think would be useful, but to a student, they could use shoelaces for so many different things. So just honestly putting people in touch has been, it seems so simple, but like, okay, you and you should meet. And then, you know, I worked with museums. So a couple of museums in New York, like MoMA, we've gotten them boxes of different various shoes and samples and stuff. So just finding ways of getting materials. I've hand delivered products just to get it into people's doors. And yeah, it's so simple, but yeah, there's still such like a big disconnect for some reason. Yeah. And then workshops, yeah, teaching and being able to like host a workshop, getting, hopefully then making the connection of a company that's looking to donate and then keeping them in touch, and hopefully they can help them financially or with material in the future. I think a couple different ways. I think the main reason would be that students and people that get a chance to work with this material realize the value of it. And I think that's been the biggest thing. And we've had conversations about like getting people to understand, you know, that people are really making these things. They're hand making these shoes. They're making your jackets in a factory. And just because it might not function as a jacket anymore doesn't mean it has to stay as a jacket. Like, it can be used for something else. And even if you're just taking the zipper off of it and finding another way to use that, like, that's better than it being incinerated. So I think just kind of opening up people's minds to like what upcycling is. And like, you don't necessarily have to be like going extreme with it and doing what I'm doing and like, upcycling everything in your life, like your whole closet. But I think there's just small ways of being able to integrate like products that maybe can't function anymore as that thing, find different ways of being able to like use what's left. And, there's so many possibilities. And I think it's such a great starting point for young designers too, because the stakes are a little bit lower. Something that I learned too when I started, I was like, I'm going to cut up like a shoe sample that's a half a pair of shoes. Like no one's going to miss it. And that felt better than me trying to like go to a fabric store, pick out a yard of fabric, and I only have, this much. And what if I mess it up? Like I feel like the stakes are a little bit lower when you're using something that's already been pre-loved. So you're like, okay, I might as well just go for it. And I find it even more interesting to try to problem solve around something that has a shape or a sleeve or a pocket and try to either find a way to use that and incorporate that into the piece or work around it. If it has a stain or a hole, like, can I, put it in the piece? Can I like cut around it? How can I like work with what I have? So I think just teaching people how to problem solve and get people excited about waste, because I think it's fun. So yeah, I'm the industry dumpster. That's my name. So not the sexiest title, but I'll take it. And I'll gladly, I find ways of using it. So it's a balance, like being able to balance my own identity, which is kind of a very specific thing with a company that maybe has been doing something a certain way, or they have a product that they're known for, and not changing it beyond recognition, but like finding ways of balancing like what I do with what they do. And it's not always easy. I do think there's a little bit of like a trust earned situation. And I thankfully now have been doing this for quite a few years, so I can show them a little bit of proof of like, I promise this will work. Like the idea sounds maybe a little bit crazy, but I usually come to them with a couple of different concepts. I really love to, especially if a company has a product that they are really known for, and like finding ways of showing it in a new way is always really exciting for me, because a lot of the time it could be really obvious and really simple, but they haven't really gotten a chance to step back and see it in the way that I can see it. So that's always the goal, is like, let's not change it too much. Like, let's first start with like just being able to highlight it in a fun way. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been like a lot of trial and error over the past few years. But I have to say, like, coming from working internally at a company, I had to be able to do that. I had to execute like a brand's vision, even though I had my own personal beliefs or my own personal like design ideology, like, but I'm working under a brand. So I think I learned pretty early on like how to nurture that relationship and not come in like too strong and be like, this is how we're going to do things, and be flexible when I can and prove to them that like this is going to work. But I also think long-term relationships have helped with that, like trust earned over, X amount of years. Like before we jump into doing product like at scale, what if we do a one-of-one piece? What if we do a workshop? Keeping it a little bit tighter at first, and then, see where the possibilities will take us. Okay. I mean, I want to answer it well. So,
Well, it comes out, it's great, I'm sure.
I mean, this program, the OOPD program, is something that I have never seen before, to be honest. And if I knew that this existed when I was when I was going to school, I for sure would have chose this. I think it just prepares you in a way that maybe other programs, I'm not sure if they do or not, but I do think it gives you like the life experience and the product experience. The people that you're, surrounded by are equally like as passionate about it. That's what I'm gathering, is like all the professors, all the students, everyone has kind of this shared goal of like just making really good quality things that are hopefully are going to be useful, impactful, and like last a long time. And from someone from the industry that appreciates like well-made things, I think that's my biggest takeaway, is like you're making things that are very like product ready. So I think like that's probably like one of the coolest and biggest takeaways for me, is just like such an appreciation for the program and like the readiness. And I'd say use this time to learn, to really take it all in. And I know it's so simple, but like just even having the resources here, because you might not land in a job right away where you get to sew as much as this or make things and have all this access to machines. And I know it seems like such a simple thing, but once your career starts, like it can be hard to maintain this level of creativity. And so I'd say have fun with it, connect as much as you can with students and beyond, like cold call, reach out to people. I mean, that's how people really get their name in this industry, is just by like meeting people and putting yourself out there. So I think I have full faith that these students are going to do very well. And I'm really excited to see where they all land.